to rock this place. Hey! Hey!
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and in this episode, we will be discussing everything Bills as we get one step closer to the opening kickoff. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, a special member of the Bills Mafia and a New York Mets fan. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Joe DeLeo. Let's bring him on, folks.
How's it going?
Joe, how's it going?
It is going very well. How about yourself?
Going very well. So heard you went to the game on Saturday. How was it?
It was a perfect day outside. It rained a little bit before. There was rain in the forecast, but really we stayed dry throughout. So, again, a beautiful day and, very interesting football game. Preseason is supposed to be about experimentation and trying different things out. And we got to see a lot of that. And I think, staying on my toes for this broadcast, it kind of had my attention. I was looking for different things that made it even more fun and more interesting. So it was a very enjoyable experience.
It was very enjoyable. And then what was really enjoyable is seeing that new Bills defense, that scheme where you put everybody up on the line and a guy on the edge. And but the quality of play was good too. But we'll get that into that more. I'd like to bring on our recurring guests and a returning guest that was recently on a couple weeks ago. If you may not know him, folks, but for those who do know him, he drives an awesome looking car with the Bills logo on it. Lives in Amherst and he goes to work in Hamburg and he drives that thing around like it's no tomorrow. Everybody, please welcome Steve at the Bills Car Guy. Let's bring him on.
Hey, Joe and Jamie. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on again. It's good to see you both.
Welcome back. Great
Steve.
to see
we
you.
love having you coming on.
It's great. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. So, anyway, let's get going. So it's once again that time to take our football question of the week. And since Steve wasn't here to join us last week, we are going to send him this question out. So, Steve, here's your question for this week in Bills Trivia. The MVP record for a non-quarterback is 3 times. Who holds it? Is it Barry Sanders, Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, or Walter Payton? Again, the MVP record for a non-quarterback is 3. Does Barry Sanders hold it, Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, or Walter Payton? Go ahead.
Whew, that's a good one. I'm going to go with I don't know the answer to this, so this is a shot in the dark, but I do think all 4 of them could be MVPs multiple times, but I'm going to go with Barry Sanders on this one.
Nope, the correct answer was Jim Brown.
Well, he's a good running back, one of the best, so that was probably
R.I.P., by the way.
more of an
Jim
obvious
Brown.
answer. Yep. He's
Anyway,
a great running back.
Exactly. Okay, now let's get down to some football talk now. So, Joe, as I mentioned when I brought you on, that you went to the Bills preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. And Steve, you already said you didn't go because you were DJing a wedding. So, what did you think about the game, Joe?
Yeah, it was an excellent game. And first of all, Steve, don't feel bad about missing that question. I missed last week's trivia question, so I ruined our perfect record anyway. So no big deal there. But again, it was an excellent experience being at the game. Again, it was a beautiful day outside. It was rained pregame. In fact, they had to evacuate the stadium because of lightning in the area. Luckily, it all happened before the game. But, I don't know if you're going to find too many places where you get a pretty full stadium for a preseason game. And, it was great atmosphere. Not too many empty seats at all. And, just we've talked about some things on this show as far as things to look for, things that are happening with the team as far as position battles, as far as different things and players to look for. So it was actually fun looking for those things actually during the game. And, from both sides of the football, from offense, defense, especially those positions we've been talking about as far as middle linebacker, as far as defensive back, as far as wide receiver, and just seeing how things were playing out, made it very interesting. So just a beautiful day for football. The rain held off. It was supposed to rain all day. The rain held up, excuse me. And, just a perfect day to watch a football game. And even though it was preseason, again, it was a fun game to watch and very interesting to see things play out.
How did Kyle Allen look on the field?
He looked a little tentative. If you look at his stats, they're not very impressive and, pretty no frills. I know he had the one interception, which may not have totally been his fault. It was missed by the receiver, the pass, but, he, first preseason game, it's hard to judge. But looking, on the field, he looked a little tentative. And, hopefully that's something that will change and he'll grow out of and play out of as time goes on. But, not that he looked awful. Again, if you look at the stats, they're not that good, and the quarterback rating is not that good. But, hopefully he'll progress a little bit as time goes on. But, Barkley, on the other hand, certainly made things interesting.
Well, yeah, definitely. Barkley's, even though he was 2 years out of the Bills, he knows the system very well and just seems to get better with it every time he plays in preseason. So we'll see how that competition stands out. But who do you think stood out defensively?
There were quite a few players that stood out defensively. I got some of my game notes I'm going to cheat a little bit here and look at. But, obviously everybody's talking about Damar Hamlin. That was certainly a highlight, just seeing him on the field there. Not only just seeing him on the field, but it seemed like he had never left and seemed that he never had the experience that he had. He looked great. Dane Jackson, he was one of the guys we were talking about as far as the cornerback position and battling with Elam. And he gets an interception and pretty much never saw, action after that. He was pulled off the field, which kind of leads me to believe he's the leading candidate for that position. He looked good. Some of the third string guys like Boogie Basham, he had a sack. He seemed very inspired the whole time as he's playing there. He did like 3 tackles, a sack, and just looked like he belonged on the field. And that's those are the ones that stood out to me. As far as I know, there's guys I'm forgetting here. Perhaps I'm thinking offense, but Boogie Basham, Poona Ford, I've been kind of rooting for him. He's a veteran guy brought in from Seattle, and I think a little underrated. And it seemed like his play the other day was underrated. Nobody was talking about him, but yet he had a handful of tackles as well and looked like he belonged down in the field. You look at the depth chart, he's still like number 3 as far as for his position, on the line there. But again, I think he could be, maybe not a starter, but a valuable backup, if they give him a chance here. I was impressed by him as well. So, the starters all played a little bit, and they look good. Guys from Oliver, Milano had his share. He had a couple of tackles as well and looked like he was already ready to go. So, the defensive starters looked very good as well. Again, they made Anthony Richardson, look poor and really gave him a hard time. And not a good start for him, the Colts quarterback. He'll grow out of that as well. But, certainly the Bills made things very difficult for him. So I think a very good performance, up and down the entire Bills defense.
And as they mentioned on ESPN today, Anthony Richardson is already going to be named the Colts starter. So we'll see how that goes for the Colts. But staying on topic with the Bills and their defense, how do you think McDermott did in his first job being the defensive coordinator, calling the defensive plays, while also taking control of his entire team as head coach.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of variety, different setups, different schemes, different guys being featured. I like the variety, and that's something that as the season goes on, you have variety. You're going to throw off offenses. You're going to, keep them guessing, keep them on their toes, and it's not going to be so predictable. It's going to be very difficult to play against. I mean, their performances were excellent, like I said, but just the fact that I noticed a lot of change ups. I noticed a lot of, again, different formation schemes, etc. That I think is going to make things very difficult for opposing offenses.
Yeah, I agree. And Steve, since you didn't go to the game, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, a lot of thoughts similar to Joe's. The defense was very interesting to me. I think they schemed up a lot of good blitzes, and obviously when I think it was the guy who came in after Richardson. I'm drawing a blank. Gardner Minshew came in, got sacked twice right away, and they drew up some great pressure. But I think a guy who actually stood out, which is pretty awesome because they got him in the third round, was Dorian Williams. I think he led the team in tackles. I think he had 7. Yes. So that's a pretty great thing to see. And Eric Washington said today it's not out of the question that they might move him back to middle linebacker. And he could very well, because they always talk about wanting the best 11 on the field. So there's a very good chance that, not a very good chance, but there's a chance that they could move Dorian Williams back to middle linebacker if Dodson and Bernard aren't cutting it to what they think is possible. And Dorian Williams looked like he held his own pretty well on Saturday from what I saw. And he looked pretty big, a lot bigger than I thought he was. But man, he flew around. He's a fast linebacker, and he was definitely holding his own. So that was my excitement. The offense, I think, did okay in the beginning. I think Kyle Allen's first throw, I put out a tweet. It was like a GIF of a guy going, because it was pretty bad. And I was like, oh man, I hope he did improve. I was like, at first I was like, oh man, I don't think he's going to win the backup job, but it was his first game in this offense. So it's going to be growing pains, and that's why we have the preseason for him to learn. So we'll see, because they were talking on WGR today about him and how he's more athletically gifted than Barkley is, a little bit stronger of an arm, a little bit more athletic. But they also said that a lot of the QB play is between the ears, in the head, and Barkley seems to have that ability to turn it on when he's playing a game, and Allen turns it on, Kyle Allen turns it on better when he's in practice. So it's going to be interesting to see how that comes to fruition with the two guys competing for the backup job. But at this point, you want who's best, and right now it looks like it's Barkley, but there's still 2 more preseason games to see if Kyle Allen improves. And it's just an exciting time. And as you were talking about it, Joe, watching the preseason and watching, kind of taking a more in-depth evaluation of the team, it's a lot more exciting to watch preseason now because the Bills are good. Right. Back when the Bills were bad, you were just like, all right, so I don't even know who these people are in the second half of the game. Like, you had no clue. I didn't even recognize the names, because the first string wasn't even anything to gawk at, and then you're like seeing these guys come out and you're like, who the heck is that? But now you're more in depth of like, okay, I know this guy has a chance to play as a backup roller on special teams, because you know what our identity is in our offense and our defense. So you get to see the depth of all these players, and you get more excited about, the potential of this depth coming into play at some point in this season. And it makes the preseason a lot more exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Joe, were there any other thoughts you had on the game?
Just on the offensive side of the ball, there was a few things there. It was interesting. The Bills have so many wide receivers, and it's like, you have the obvious ones, and, guys like Davis and, and Diggs didn't play, obviously, but it was interesting to watch, some of them get their chances. And one person that impressed me a little bit was Andy Isabella. Never heard of this guy before the game. I hadn't realized that they picked him up, and he caught a couple of nice passes, but even more impressive, he had some really good kickoff returns. 18 yards. He averaged 16 yards. I think he had three kickoff returns. So that's somebody to keep an eye on, I thought. And again, with Barkley, it's hard to tell. I mean, by the time he was in the game, he's probably going against, some Colts third stringers. So it's kind of like, what kind of a judgment can you make? I keep saying 154%, quarterback rating is nothing to sneeze at no matter who you're playing against. I guess the highest you can go is like 158, somebody said, and he had a 154. So that's impressive no matter who you're playing against. So I think that's something to look at. Hopefully, we never have to answer this question. Hopefully, it doesn't matter who the backup quarterback is because Josh Allen stays out there. He's healthy. He's playing well. And we never even find out, who deserves this job or who's going to be getting it and playing it, right? Hopefully, we never even have to talk about that. But, Barkley, again, he knew how to run the offense. He made very smart decisions. He helped the receivers out. Like I said, made them look good as well. The only the concern I had with him is just a lot of the passes he was throwing just seemed like it took 20 seconds to get to the receiver. It was just, he doesn't have the best arm. And, that is something of a concern. But again, as far as his mental makeup in this game, and again, almost playing a perfect game for a quarterback, regardless of, which part of the Colts defense he was going against, I think is very impressive and kind of makes a case, to maybe push Kyle Allen a little bit and see where that goes. But again, hopefully we never get an answer to that question because Josh Allen is out there all the time and it's not even an issue.
Mm-hmm. So now what do you guys think about their next preseason game as the Bills head on the road this Saturday against the Pittsburgh Steelers, or we call them the Pittsburgh Squealers on this team, and Kenny Pickett, or I call him Kenny Pickett fence. So, Steve, do you want to go first on what you think?
So about the game this weekend?
Yes.
I think we're going to see a little bit more of the first team offense this weekend. I do think there's a chance we'll see Allen play a series, maybe two. But when it comes down to it, for preseason, for me, I'm just more excited to see backup roles and what they're going to do and what they're going to fill in because, we already do know what our offense can do, and I don't ever want to see any one of our starters go down in the preseason. Mm-hmm. So it's, for me, it's just kind of get the backups in there as soon as we can. And let's see what they can continue to do to show what they're able to do and show their ability to go out there and, be the reliable backups that we think they are. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm actually looking forward to watching the whole game because I will not be DJing a wedding this weekend. So it'll be nice to just sit there and watch the whole game. And I actually want to go on NFL Plus and rewatch the condensed version of the Saturday game from this past week to kind of get more details in it. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this weekend against the Steelers. I know the Steelers are one of those fringe teams right now. They could end the season 6-11. They could end the season 8-9, or, it's hard to see how they're going to do because, what Pickett has a possibility to do well. But I also don't take too much stake in preseason games when it comes to wins and losses. The Raiders blew out the Niners. That's about that. I think that about describes preseason. Again, right. I get excited no matter what when the Bills get a win, but I don't put too much into a preseason win or a loss. I don't take it to heart. So, but again, I'm still excited to watch and make evaluations now. Now that I'm looking at things more in depth than I used to, it makes preseason a lot more interesting.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
A lot of what Steve just said, I agree. I think as far as how the Bills will handle this game, get the starters, maybe a little bit of exposure. In fact, maybe more in this game than the next one. I think maybe kind of give them their experience here a little bit and you can kind of ease up in game 3. I don't know if that's the route they'll take, but,
Who's
I think
the third game? Is it Chicago?
I believe it is. Yes.
Okay,
In
sorry to interrupt
Chicago,
you, Joe. I couldn't remember.
No, that's okay. I think it is in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. It's at Chicago.
Okay.
Again, I don't take much stock in preseason results. In fact, on last week's show, I said the Bills would lose this coming game here in Pittsburgh. Not that it matters. Teams could have a differential, a points differential of plus 100 or minus 100 in the preseason. It means absolutely nothing. Again, it's just like was with the first game. It's just going to be fun to watch who's getting some playing time. What are they doing with that playing time? Maybe who's getting second looks that we didn't expect to get second looks that had good games in the first game. It'll be interesting to see again, if they get added time to play, and B, if they have the same positive results. Does Boogie Basham continue to get sacks and look great? And, does Isabella, return kicks again and do a great job with that? We'll see. Does Kyle Allen outshine Matt Barkley this time? Just a lot of those questions I think are going to be interesting to find out, in this game. But again, I'm looking forward to watching it. It's funny because I'll be traveling the following weekend and we'll miss that game. But this game I'm looking forward to watching, again, just seeing how some of those position battles and how some of those players that we talked about from last game, how they do in this game as well.
I think if you don't mind, the one thing that we sometimes we overlook is we got to remember that Barkley was playing against the threes and sometimes some fours, and Kyle Allen was playing against the Colts ones on defense. Right. Shaquille Leonard was out there. I'm sorry, I don't know many defensive players on the Colts. I don't think DeForest Buckner was playing. But they had their starters out there. So that's what Kyle Allen was going against as opposed to what Barkley was going against in the second half. So, that's got to be taken into consideration when you're looking at it as well. And, as a Bills fan, I would say if Josh Allen was in there, I think he would have destroyed those ones of the Colts. So that's all the perspective you got to remember to look at too, is who's playing against what level of defense they're playing against, and what defense is playing against which offense. And that's a lot to take into consideration in the preseason.
True.
I basically think that the Steelers are one of those teams where you said they could be either 6-11 or 8-9. I think they're a team that could be a dark horse team in the AFC to make the playoffs and possibly make the AFC championship game. I don't know, but that's a bold prediction for another day. So, but yeah, that game, I just want to see no starters get hurt when the first team plays, and have guys compete for the middle linebacker and just go out there and compete for roles and jobs and everything after the starters do their job. So now that we are about 1 month away from opening day, I'd like to talk about the Bills' 17-week schedule, and if you think they will win in their weekly matches. So the first game, week 1, we obviously know this one's penciled in on the calendar is the big one. It's Monday, September 11th at the New York Jets against the Aaron Rodgers, the newly signed Aaron Rodgers at 8:45 p.m. So, Steve, do you want to go first? Tell us, what do you think about this game and how do you think they'll do?
I think they're going to win, and here's why. I think they're going to win because the Bills, with Josh Allen, they come out of the gates hot. The past 3-4 seasons, they've come out firing on all cylinders. And not only that, but Aaron Rodgers does not come out hot week 1. And maybe not for, 15 years ago, but the past couple seasons, week 1, he comes out flat and throws up duds. So I think that the Bills are going to be over-prepared, and it's signing Dalvin Cook today. I think it was today or yesterday they signed Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. Having that happen, I think, is actually huge because it allows the Bills to have a month to game plan for him, and then Breece Hall coming off the PUP list and going back to practicing, most likely playing week 1. It allows them to prepare for both of them, and I think the Bills will get a win week 1.
Okay, Joe, what are your thoughts?
I agree with most of that. I predict a win as well for the same reasons. The Bills always seem to play well prime time, always seem to play well week one. I think we'll see the same type of result we saw week one last year when they played the Rams on opening night. Now, I think the Jets are a better team than the Rams were, but just again, the way the Bills start seasons, the way the Bills play prime time, I was unaware of Aaron Rodgers' record in those early games. So, based on those factors, I would definitely say, the Bills start the season 1-0.
I agree. I think we come out and show the Jets fans why signing Aaron Rodgers was like signing Brett Favre. It was a great great hope and a great wish, but then it doesn't turn out to be a reality, and life stinks sometimes, and that's the way it is. Anyway, moving on to week number 2. On Sunday, September 10th, we open up our first home game against the Las Vegas Raiders at 1:00. So, Joe, we're going to start with you. What do you think? How do the Bills do in this one?
All right. It's funny. I was looking ahead at all these games earlier, trying to figure out some forecast here. And at this point, of course, we're guessing because, we're basing everything on week one projections, obviously. But so I have a few surprises in here. This is not one of them. I think the Bills, it's their home opener. They're pumped. They're playing an inferior opponent at home. I don't think they struggle in this game, and I think it's an easy win against the Raiders.
Steve, your thoughts?
Yep. I agree 100%. I have some surprises too, but it's not this one. That's still out of the gates, in my opinion, especially the home opener. And I think it's going to be very similar to what the Bills did the Titans last year in their home opener.
I agree. Same thing what they did to the Titans in the home opener last year, and the Bills start out 2-0. So we move on to week 3, Sunday, September 24th. This year we go at the Washington Commanders at 1:00. So right back to you, Steve. What do you think about this game? Are there any surprises in this one?
I don't think so. I do think we're going to lose to an NFC East team, but I do not think it's going to be the Commanders. And they have some decent defensive players. They have a couple offensive weapons in McLaurin and with the Jahan Dotson, right? That's their other receiver they have there, the rookie from last year that got hurt. But I don't see the Commanders beating the Bills. It doesn't matter if it's away or home, and the Bills do play pretty decent on the road too. But I do think that the Bills are going to probably, I would say, pretty easily beat the Commanders too. I just, it's that's one of the easier games on our schedule, in my opinion.
Joe, what do you think? Sean McDermott once again going up against his former boss and Ron Rivera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible that Washington is not as bad as people think they're going to be, but I could see this being like a business as usual. Let's just do things right. Maybe not an easy victory for the Bills, but I see it, like I said, I guess a very business-like, just do things the way we normally do them, get the win and get out. So I think the Bills win this one fairly easily.
I agree. I think it's a business as usual win. We win this game easily, and I think we start out 3-0 and send those Commanders home packing. So, and it's in their stadium, by the way. Anyway, week 4 on Sunday, October 1st, we come home, and this is the first edition of Squish the Fish week, and it's Dolphin week as we play Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins, who we barely squeaked by in the playoffs last year with rookie Skylar Thompson playing quarterback, but Tua should hopefully be back by this time, and that game's at 1:00. So, Joe, give us your take on this one.
It's funny, as I'm thinking about this, I pictured that Miami playoff game last year, and I said, you know what? I could see the same thing happening here. The Bills stumble and have a subpar performance for the first time all season, but still somehow pull out a victory here. So I see it that way again in this game. The Bills win the game in a not Bills-like performance, a subpar performance for the first time things maybe start going a little wrong, but they still pull out the victory in this one.
Steve, what are your thoughts?
I think that's very possible, but it also is week 4, and we don't know if Tua is going to make it to week 4 based on his offensive line and his health history. So if he's not healthy, I think the Bills will win that game. If he is healthy, I do think it will be a chess match. Not a chess match, but a shootout. I think that they have a great offense. Obviously, they have some speedsters. Get the ball in Waddle or Hill's hands, anything could happen. I do think the Bills will win this game because it's in Buffalo. Had it been in Miami, I might have given the edge to Miami, especially with it being, again, an earlier season game, probably still pretty hot down there. I would give the edge to Miami, but because it's in Buffalo and still early in the season, where hopefully most teams have their health completely, I think the Bills fully healthy versus the Dolphins fully healthy. The Bills are still the better team, and they'll have the home advantage, so I think they would take that win.
Again, I agree with you guys. I think because it's at home, I think they win regardless of Tua's health situation or not. But I agree with Joe. It may not be the best performance, but it gets the job done, and they squeak one out here. So we all agree that the Bills are 4-0 after 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Then in week 5 on October 8th, because the Colts game was our only true home preseason game, that means we get our additional home game in Werewolves of London this year versus the Jacksonville Jaguars at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday, October 8th. This is kind of your breakfast in bed type of game, as you will. Joe, give us your take first. What do you think?
All right. I don't see this as a Bills home game. I see this as a Jaguars home game because they've played in London so many times. I think they feel comfortable there. This is the Bills' first loss of the season, in my opinion. Again, Jacksonville just pulls magic out in London when they play there. Again, they played there, I think, more than anybody. So I see this as a Jaguars home game, not a Bills home game. And I think the Bills are 4-1 after this one.
Oh, that's our first loss of the year predicted by Joe. Mm-hmm. So Steve, what are your thoughts too?
So I was going to do that. I thought I was going to go first, and I was going to say the Jags will beat the Bills. So I was going to agree with Joe, but I think at some point he and I got to have a slight disagreement. And I think this is one of those games that could go either way. The Jags will have the advantage because they'll already be in London from the previous week. They're playing 2 in a row there. I think the previous week they're playing the Falcons. So then they'll already be there. So the Bills will have the travel and the jet lag that they'll have to deal with once they get over there. So it will hurt the Bills a little bit, but I'm going to go against Joe, and I'm going to say the Bills start 5-0.
Okay, so I have to break the tie. As they say, though, Jacksonville's always had their magic run in London, but they always say all good things must come to an end and everything evens out. I think the Bills break the Jacksonville Jaguars luck there, and I think they do squeak it out in a game where the pendulum swings left or right, depending on.
And Bills fans travel pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
Yeah, I hope
you know how it's right. Bad. Go ahead.
I hope you guys are right.
Hey, instead of bad news travels fast, it's Bills news travels fast for this one. Anyway. Before I start getting too much into my comedy act, because this is a sports show, we're going to move on to week 6 on Sunday, October 15th. And this is the big Sunday night game as our former offensive coordinator / reigning head coach of the year, Brian Daboll, makes his return to Ralph Wilson Stadium, but this time on the visitor's sideline as a head coach running his own team against McDermott's team. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think McDermott teaches his old assistant a lesson here. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to see too much of a blowout. My second team, I grew up a Giants fan, so I still have a place in my heart for the Giants, and I still root for them. I won't be rooting for them in this game. I honestly see a solid Bills performance in this one, and the Bills win pretty easily, in my opinion.
Steve, what are your thoughts going up against a former OC?
Yeah, so sometimes I like to take a team that seems like it might be an easy win and say it's probably going to be a loss. But I keep like thinking about the Giants' full roster, and I just don't see it. I think last year, and I have actually a couple friends that are Giants fans, but I think last year was slightly just a fluke, maybe of, the hype of Dayball, and but I don't think they're as good as their record was last year. And I do think because this game is at home, under the lights in prime time, I just don't think the Giants really stand a chance. Again, that if it was a regular a 1:00 game in East Rutherford, New Jersey, I would probably say the Giants have a chance to be one of those ugly wins or ugly losses that the Bills get. But I just think in prime time, Josh Allen is a different animal, and he's just hard to stop. And I'm trying to look through the schedule and find a loss I'm going to pick, but I think the Giants win this or lose this one to the Bills, and I think it's actually going to be pretty easy for Buffalo.
One thing I do know those both teams know each other, and I think Daboll, even though the Giants aren't as good, he's going to have that team coming ready to prepare against McDermott because he knows our tendencies and he knows our system and everything. I think the Bills win this one, but I think it may be closer than experts think on Sunday night. But yeah, so yeah, you and I have the Bills. You and I, Steve, have the Bills at 6-0 at this point, and Joe has them at 5-1 at this point. So if we're keeping track, moving on to week 7, we go. We travel to Foxborough, suburbs of Boston, and we travel to take on the New England Patriots at 1:00. Now, Steve, I know the Patriots and Boston fans, they love that dirty water down there, but we love our Bills as much, and we think the Bills make me want to shout over loving that dirty water. So what do you think in this game?
I think the Patriots are they're just not there right now. They're a shell of what they used to be. And I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be an easy win for the Bills because the Bill Belichick's defense always comes ready. But I just don't think that Mac Jones or whoever, Bailey Zappi or Cunningham, whoever their quarterback's going to be, I just don't think they can keep up with what the Bills will be able to do. Even though it won't be easy to come by points, it's going to be pretty much impossible for the Patriots to come by points. So I think the Bills will win that game, and I am, again, looking through the schedule. I will find a loss here. I do not think they're going 17-0, but yeah, I think the Bills will beat the Patriots.
Joe, your thoughts?
All right, I have no real scientific explanation for this except the Belichick factor. This is the type of game that the Bills could lose. And even though, again, on paper, they're a much better team than the Patriots, and everything Steve said is true as far as, both offensively and defensively, I think the Bills are superior. This is just one of those games that I think the ball bounces the wrong way and the Patriots win. I hate to say it, and again, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to count this as the Bills' second loss here. No scientific reasoning. Again, if you look at the scientific reasoning, the Bills should be winning easily, but it's just one of those road games that maybe they don't get up for, maybe they take for granted, and I don't know. I see it as the second loss.
So that means Joe has 5-2 and Steve has 7-0. Now it's time for me. And before I want to say something, guys, that dirty water comment, it's not meant to be offensive in any way. It's a song back in the 70s about what the Charles River in Boston used to be before they went and cleaned it up and made it look nice now. So, and if you don't believe me, look up the song. They play it like every time the Patriots win or the Red Sox or the Bruins win. So that's what I wanted to clear the air with. But anyway, I just did that so I wouldn't get in trouble, just to cover some things there. But anyway, back to the game. Yeah, I think they could win this game. They could lose this game, but I'm going to say the Bills win this one in a business like, ho-hum. We gave up a lot of points, but we scored a lot of points. And we're 7-0, and 7-0 is 7-0. But as McDermott said, 1-0 mentality, but still got to be 1-0 every week and improve every week. So after that, folks, we travel back home, and it's a short week because it's a Thursday night Amazon prime time game. As we play home and host to Baker Mayfield and the post Tom Brady era Tampa Bay Bucks. If Baker Mayfield ends up being the quarterback, because it may be Kyle Trask by then, but we'll see. Anyway, this game's on at 8:15. So, Joe, what do you think about this one?
All right, I think it's a Bills victory. This is a game, again, the Bills come out flying on prime time, and I think they'll play a solid game. I looked at this one, and I saw it as a this is the game where the Bills defense gets national attention. I could see them winning this game like 17-3 or something like that. The offense plays well enough to win, nothing wrong. But this is a game again where on national television, people realize how good the Bills defense is. And again, I see a 17-3 type win here that the Bills win pretty soundly.
Okay, that's 6-2 for you, Joe. Steve?
I do think I actually agree completely on that because I think the Bucs have a decent defense too. Their offense is it's just not. I mean, their quarterback position is the most important position in the entire game, and they just don't have it right now. I don't think Baker Mayfield. I mean, he could be one of those guys who has a good night. He did it last year when he moved down to the Rams and had this great game, and it could be one of those trap games too. But I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be a good team at all this year. And I think by that point of the season, they might only have one win, and they might already have defeated spirits, and the Bills will just come in and confirm their defeat and, crush them completely. So I do think it'll be a weird game, low scoring for both teams, but I think the Bills have enough firepower to stay above, and Tampa just can't do anything on offense.
Okay, so that's 6-2 for Joe, 8-0 for Steve, and I agree with Steve. I think the Bills take care of Tampa this year, but look out for Tampa in a couple years in the post-Brady era. I do think they will eventually find a quarterback that can help them win this year, but it's not going to happen this year, and it's not going to happen in this game. So the Bills, we move on to 8-0 after them with a nice 17-3 win, and the Bills get media attention on defense. So now we after the Thursday game with our bye, we go to week 9, Sunday, November 5th. And this, folks, is the big game. This is the rematch at the Cincinnati Bengals, in which we were sadly, our season came to a tragic end last year in the divisional playoff round at home, 27-10. But this year, we want to show the Bengals we're a different team, and we're looking for revenge at home. And the Bills usually do well in revenge games. So, Joe, what are your thoughts? Sorry, Steve. Never mind. Steve, what are your thoughts first?
Okay.
I think the Bills are going to lose this game. Here's the reasoning behind it. I hate to be the one who's always like, I'm only going to pick them to lose to the really good teams, but they're playing after a bye against a really good Bengals team in Cincinnati. I do think emotions are going to be a high for both teams because it's another stepping stone for DeMar going into the stadium where he went down. So that's going to be an emotional game for everybody, I believe. But I do think the Bengals are a really good team. I do think the Bills are better on paper on offense and defense because the Bengals did lose both their safeties, and they're hurting a little bit on the offensive line, but not bad. But I do think the Bengals will come out on top of this one, but I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think Jamar Chase and Higgins are going to have great games. Burrow's going to have a game, and I think they're just going to, edge us out, and I do think the Bills will lose that game.
Okay, so we got 8-1 for Steve. Now, Joe, what about your thoughts?
All right, I agree with a lot of that too. I honestly think the Bengals are going to struggle this year. I think they're going to take a few steps down. However, again, I think the Bills going into this game, the Bills will be the better team. But there's just something about the Bengals that are in their head. And I agree. Again, I think the emotions are going to be swirling for a lot of players. I think, again, for some reason, this team's just in their head, and I see this as another loss for the Bills. They play
Yeah, I
well,
agree. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
but come up short.
I agree with all you guys. This is finally my first loss, but it'll be a shootout. The game's going to be a very emotional game as DeMar comes back. Maybe they'll show the national anthem on TV again, which is cool. But I think this is the Bills' first loss, but it's going to be a close game, and it's going to be nothing to hang our heads over. Next, we move on to week 10. And it's back to Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. At home against Sean Payton's Denver Broncos at 8:15. And it's going to be weird because we don't know who the Broncos might have at quarterback by then. If Russell Wilson's playing well, then Russell Wilson's going to stay the quarterback. If not, Jarrett Stidham could be starting, or our XFL friend Ben Gucci DiNucci could be starting that game too. So anyways, guys, no matter who the quarterback starts in that game, what are your thoughts in this game, Joe?
Yeah, I think Denver is going to be a better team than people think. Russell Wilson's going to have things to prove. So I think he will be playing at this point, as long as he stays injury-free. But I think this is another one of those business as usual for the Bills. They play a solid primetime performance. Denver keeps up, gives them a little bit of a fight. But I could see this as like a Bills 31-21 victory. A typical primetime performance. They're the better team. They play like it. And, it's a win for the Bills.
Okay, Steve?
I agree with that, just to move past this one, because I think it's one of those games that's like not one they'll overlook, because Denver does have a good defense and they do have Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, but I think the Bills will take care of business as needed on a primetime game at home again. They're just going to be a hard team to beat at home, especially in primetime. So I say the Bills win this one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I agree with that one too. I think we win a 10-point game, but I'm a little I have my little XFL bias in me. I really want to see Ben DiNucci start that game on Monday night. It'd be kind of cool, But yeah, like you said, you guys think Russell Wilson will start, but I still think they're going to win by maybe 10 to 15 points, no matter who's starting quarterback. It's a business as usual game on prime time where the Bills just come in and show that they're the better team and show that they're ready for the second half of the season. So we move on to week 11 on Sunday, November 19th, and the Bills stay at home. And this is one of 4 straight 425 games against the New York Jets, Jets. And at this point, the Bills we all think they already have one win against Aaron Rodgers on the road. And instead the Jets are coming home for this game. So Steve, what do you think about this game? Do the Bills win this one, or do the Jets get their revenge from week 1?
I think that based on what we said about week 1, I think the Jets will be more prepared, and they'll come in, and they do have a really good team, a really good defense, and I think the Jets will actually edge us out at home and win this game. I think it'll be close to last year's when the Bills lost in New Jersey, that close game, but when Allen got hurt his elbow, and we had a chance to win. But I think the Jets will actually beat us at home. And that's it's a tough one to say out loud, but I think it will happen. They're a good team, and it's going to be interesting to say. And this could all change by week 2 when you see Aaron Rodgers getting pummeled back there because their offensive line can't protect him. Because you could have Peyton Manning back there, but if he's not getting protected, he's not gonna be able to do much. So I think the Jets, if they can figure out a little bit of the offensive line, they'll pull off this victory.
Okay, and Joe, what do you think?
All right, come on, Steve. What are you, crazy? No, I'm joking, because I agree with that. Especially the fact that the Bills are going to be coming off a Monday night game. There's always a little bit of a disadvantage for teams there. We were talking about how, again, Rodgers gets better as we get along, and you mentioned the preparation. The Bills usually have a loss to a divisional opponent at home. Again, it's not one of those games where they don't show up. I think it's close. I think they have a chance. But I think this is one of those, especially being a divisional game where the Jets are familiar, they've already played, that I see the Jets winning this game as well.
And November is statistically not a great month for the Bills football. It just is one of those months that's kind of like, okay, this is a long season. We got to remember that. And they have a couple ups and downs. So I think that's going to be that in the Bengals. I'm giving them 2 losses in November just because statistically it's seen from the past that they struggle in November a little bit. Hopefully they can fix that, but then they'd be undefeated at 10-0 already or something. So.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on this one. I think the Bills do unfortunately lose this one. The Jets are going to be more prepared after watching film from week 1, and Aaron Rodgers does get better as the season go on, but that Jets defense is just as good, is almost as good as any defense in the league. Robert Saleh, everywhere he's been, just like Sean McDermott's done a great job with his defenses. His defenses are always well coached. So yeah, I got the Jets winning that one close. Then in our second of 4 straight 425 games in week 12, we go on the road to face the runners-up of the Super Bowl last year, Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Steve, let me start out with you. Is this the NFC team you think we're going to lose to?
I do, and I do because it's in Philadelphia. I think this is a game that could go either way. Philadelphia is a very talented team last year, and they got better with the draft and with a couple off-season moves. But I do think this game could go either way. But I'm going to give Philly the edge because it's in Philadelphia. Had this game been in Buffalo, I think Buffalo could pull off the win. So it just goes to show, home field advantage for the Bills in the playoffs is so important, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those classic NFL games that after the season, we look back at some of the great regular season games. This is one of them. I see the Bills losing by like a field goal or by 2 or something like that. Again, it's at Philadelphia. That's, again, the tough stretch we were talking about. 2 losses in November. This is the 3rd that I have for them. Again, it's one of those games that it's going to kind of be 2 sides of it. You can't hang your head because you played a great game and you played a great team in their stadium. You just came up short. But this is going to be the 2nd loss in a row, and I think I got this 3 out of 4. So, again, there's going to be concern, and it's like, yeah, it was a tough loss, but we still couldn't afford this loss. So that's what I see happening as I play this out in my mind here. A great game that we talk about after the season, that NFL fans talk about after the season as far as one of the better regular season games. Again, the Bills show up, play very well in Philadelphia, but just come up a tad short.
Now, I know I've agreed with you on most of these guys, but I have to disagree at some point. This one, I do disagree. I think the Bills win in a classic game, and everybody talks about, remember when the Bills won in that classic game, because, again, the Philadelphia Eagles, great against NFC teams, but when they actually have to play an NFC team or AFC team, not so good track record, as you saw last year when they lost in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. So, yeah, I differ from you guys. I got the Bills winning this one in a shootout, and both teams played very well in Philadelphia, and we keep their fans locked in a jail cell after this game, like the tradition that Philadelphia's always had. If you guys don't know that tradition, look it up about where they lock the Philly fans up in a fake jail because they get crazy there.
Sure they do.
But anyway, I digress. I move on. Week 13 is a bye week, so that's a win for everybody. Claps for that. Yay. Then we move on to week 14, and this is another game everybody's got circled on the calendar. Sunday, December 10th, we go on the road to Arrowhead against Kansas City, and we play the Wonder Boy, the second Wonder Boy himself, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs in the 3rd of straight 425 games. Again, this is in Arrowhead. We beat them. We all remember the 13 seconds game, but we all remember that we beaten them twice on the road during revenge games. So, Steve, will third times be the charm and the regular season for you in this one, or what do you think?
Yeah, I actually, like Joe said with the Bengals, I hate to say it with the Chiefs because they never seem to do it, but I think they actually might take a step back this season too. We got to remember Travis Kelce is getting up there in age too, and they keep seem to be like they're losing weapons and not really making many additions to help Mahomes. Somebody's going to figure out how to guard Kelsey eventually. Someone's going to figure it out, and I think Sean McDermott might actually do that. But I think the Bills will win this game, and I actually think it's going to be close to not last year, but the year before, when Allen had his first hurdle over a Chiefs cornerback, and we won that game that was in the rain. We won by like two touchdowns or more, I think. I think it's going to be similar to that. Because I also think the Bills are going to be ticked off at this point after losing. I think I had them losing two of the previous three in November. So I think the Bills are going to come out and they're going to put a hurting on the Chiefs and kind of silence their fans, I think.
Especially the fact that we have our own Travis Kelce as tight end now and Duncan Kane, and we got two, and we could possibly have three with Jay Sternberger. And I still think Jay Sternberger, minus that fumble in the preseason, was a great catch. And I think he could bounce back from that. So, yeah, we could possibly have three tight ends versus their one Travis Kelce. And I think our offense does enough to outscore them. And with our new defensive scheme, this is a perfect scheme to try to stop the Chiefs. You send a blitz with the team with your linebackers, and you blitz everybody to get after Mahomes, and you put somebody on the edge and put five guys on the line to stop the run. So, yeah, this scheme will show that the Bills are no longer going to be conservative against the Chiefs when they play them on defense. And that this is the way they guard Kelce now, is by doing that. So, yeah, I do think we all think the Bills win this one. But, Joe, did you go yet?
No, and Steve made a comment before about being too predictable and picking the Bills to lose in tough road games. But I'm picking the Bills to lose in this one. I agree the Chiefs may not be a Super Bowl team, like they've been. But I think this is just one of those games where, again, it's another close one. It's another tough loss for the Bills. I think, according to my notes, this might be the last loss I have for them. But or maybe one more, I don't know. But I think, again, they lose a tough battle here. However, Bills fans that are watching this and getting mad at me because I'm picking all these Bills losses, how about this? The Bills lose this game, but then they come back in a month and a half and they beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game and move on. So I pick a loss for the Bills in this one. I say the Chiefs win a close one.
So you have a reversal of basically 2021 where we beat them in the regular season and we lost in the divisional game. So you think the pendulum swings the other way in the regular season and then it swings our favor in the playoffs. I like that, Joe.
I think the Chiefs are going to get eliminated before they face us in the playoffs.
Did you hear that, guys? This just in, as Max Kellerman would say, Steve at Bill's Car Guy with the smoke screen take of this podcast so far. There you go. ESPN, are you watching this? Da-na-na, da-na-na. Anyway, after that game, this game's very special for me and the parents and I, as we're going to this game. Actually, the Bills return home in their last of 4 straight 425 games at home to take on the new look Dallas Cowboys, the first Dallas Cowboys team without Zeke, but the first one with the 5'5" but very fast Deuce Vaughn. So, Joe, do you want to go this one? You want to take the wheel on this one first?
I will, only because I have 3 minutes of charge left here, and I'm going to have to make a run for a charger. So, this is what game. I looked at it. I said I could see Dallas coming in here. I think Dallas is going to come in first place in that division. I could see Dallas coming in here and pulling an upset. I think this is going to be another close, classic game, except I think the Bills win, again, a 2-point, 3-point game here. another classic, another excellent one. Both teams play extremely well, but I think the Bills win this one.
Steve, what are your thoughts? Like I said, a new look Cowboys team. They got rid of Zeke's salary. They
Right back.
paid Tony Pollard a 1-year deal, and they got Deuce Vaughn now, and new look running backs, a new offense, and just new weapons in the backfield, but the same kind of receivers. So what do you think? And it's the Diggs, Stefan's brother Trey will be coming to town too. So what do you think of that battle of the Diggs brothers?
I think the Bills will win. I think, first of all, we have the better Diggs on our team in Buffalo. But I also just think that Diggs isn't going to lose to his little brother. I think that's going to be one of those games that Diggs has circled on his calendar and says, we're not losing this one. I don't care what we have to do. So I think that the Bills will win that game. If it was in Dallas, it'd probably be a little closer in my prediction, but I think the Bills will actually win this one easily.
Yeah, I think that this could be actually another classic game. We look back in the cold and say, do you remember how classic this game was? Bills Cowboys, and keep in mind, folks, this will be the first time that if Brandon Aubrey is still with the Cowboys on the team, he'll probably be kicking in snow and cold weather, which he wasn't able to do in the USFL. He wasn't used to kicking in cold weather. That'll be interesting to see how he'll do, because Tyler Bass, we already know, is a good kicker. But yeah, it could come down to which kicker kicks better in the cold. So I think the Bills squeaked this one out over Dallas. But I think we could see Dallas in the Super Bowl, not Philadelphia. So who knows? Next week after that, it's the Saturday game before Christmas Eve as we travel to SoFi Stadium to take on the LA Chargers and Mr. Netflix boy now, Justin Herbert. So at 8:00 prime time. So Steve, what are your thoughts on this game?
I think the Bills will actually win this game. They're very, very good in a dome. Josh Allen plays very, very well when there's no weather elements, as do most quarterbacks. But I think Josh Allen's full potential comes out in domes. And I think the Bills will beat the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a good team. But I would say coach against coach, I would take McDermott every day over Brandon Staley. I think Brandon Staley's probably on the hottest seat right now in the NFL with the talent he has on his team, and he just can't seem to figure it out, especially late in the season. And because it's this late in the season, I think the Bills will win this game.
Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, last week we talked about the Chargers, and I say they're the type of team that could sneak up on people, come late in the season and playoff time. And I think this is a time where they're going to be hitting their stride, and I could see the Chargers winning this game. I knew I had the Bills for 7 losses, and I think this is the 7th one. Again, not that they play poorly, but I think, again, this is around the time where the Chargers start hitting their stride a little bit. The Bills get in their path, and I pick the Chargers to win this game.
I'm going to have to agree with Steve on this one. I think I do agree with you, Joe, that the Chargers this is a team that the Chargers could hit their stride. But I also think with Steve mentioning that the Bills playing well in a dome, no weather, and the Chargers with Brandon Staley on the hot seat, I think we made his seat even hotter and really put the flame out there with by winning this game. But I think it'll be a competitive, close game since it's on the road. If it was at Buffalo, I think the Chargers wouldn't be used to the cold. But because it's no weather, I think we win this game. Like, let's say, I think we win it 30-18 probably.
Okay.
Anyway, we move on to week 17 as we say goodbye to 2023, literally, with a New Year's Eve afternoon game. And we this time we play the Patriots at home. And I know you said, Steve and Joe, that we lose this game on the road. Is this the game where we even things out and we take care of business in our last home game of the year?
You asking me first?
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I actually think I said they beat New England in New England, but I also think they beat them at home. I don't think we're going to lose to the Patriots this year. I think that at this point of the season, the Patriots could very easily be 6-10. And they might have just kind of given up on their season, and the Bills are playing to lock up the number 1 seed based on where I'm at with their wins. And I think the Bills can clinch the 1 seed, and they'll beat the Patriots to do so.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy win for the Bills. I did pick the Bills to lose in New England, but that's mid-season. At this point, again, I don't think the Patriots will be a playoff team, and, they may just be playing out the schedule here. I hope Steve is right as far as the Bills playing for number 1 seed. I'm not sure about that, but they could certainly be playing for the division. And I think the game will mean a lot more to the Bills than it will the Patriots. And I could see the Bills winning this game quite easily, especially if the weather is crappy and everything. They're used to playing in that, although, the Patriots play in bad weather too. But I just think that, again, the state of the teams, as Steve mentioned, I think the Bills will be playing for something, whether it's a division, whether it's a seed. And I think the Patriots will be playing for nothing.
Okay, and to wrap up things real quick before we go, because we're running out of time, but I think the Bills will win that game easily. And we move on to the last game of the regular season as we officially welcome in 2024 on Sunday, January 7th. And this time we travel to Hard Rock Stadium to play the Fish again. And Steve, what do you think about this game?
I think the Bills will lose this game in Miami, and I think they'll lose them because they're resting their starters. That's where I'm at for the rest of the season, but I think they lose this game.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
All right. I think a couple of things. Again, I think they still might be playing for something here. And I think it's the revenge factor. They're not playing a team in their stadium where it's 200 degrees outside. I think they're going to be playing in January here. And I think there's a revenge factor here. And I think the Bills actually win this game.
And yes, I do think the Bills will win that game as well. So, now that we're we're coming down to the end of our show and we're out of time. So, Joe, where can we find you in the social media world, in this crazy world of social media in 2023?
In the social media, and again, we're going to call it Twitter, right? Joe Dell Sports. Follow me there. I post regular Bills updates and other sports updates as well there. I have a blog where I put stuff on there as well. So. Check, follow me there, Joe Dell Sports.
It's Steve. Where can we find you? Your handle pretty much says it, but still tell the viewers so that in case if some don't know.
Yep, at Bill's Car Guy, a couple underscores in there, but you can also find me at same handle on Instagram as well. Instagram is more for personal and family stuff. I don't really put much Bill's stuff on there. Mostly on Twitter is where you'll see my NFL Twitter kind of blow up, and then obviously Bill's content galore on there as much as I can. And I like to do giveaways too. So if people want to follow me on there, they could have a chance to maybe win a signed jersey that I like to give away. It's just part of trying to make the world a better place and be positive. So that's what I do on Twitter.
All right. That's wonderful to hear. And as always, you can follow yours truly on Twitter/X or whatever you want to call it. I still want to call it Twitter at Bills Chat 1 at Bills Mafia Chat, and also Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist at DJ Dog Tags. And then you can also find me on DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and both spring football leagues. And I also write for FanBuzz.com about G5 college football. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And remember, no matter what happens this year to the NFL, just remember, we're all happy, we're all healthy. And to quote this, to get this show out with a quote from Chris Berman, one of the best Bills Mafia members and a great ESPN journalist, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. We'll see you next time, guys.
See you guys.
To rock this